Welcome to this video. So this video is part of my series on romance, my journey into romance. And in the previous video, which was the first video, I talked about the 6 reasons why I had never explored romance for 39 years of my life. And this video is going to be dedicated towards answering, well, why is it that now I'm finally considering going on that journey? Now, I should say that the main purpose of all of this is just introspection, for me to understand my conscious mind and my subconscious mind better as I start this journey. But the reason why I make it public is that, I've had friends and family ask me these questions across many, many years. And I finally feel like after thinking about it, I have good answers. And so this is for them. But I also make this available to the larger public because, I don't know, I kind of feel like maybe there's some utility towards having an honest and open diary entry on this journey of having diary entries of many different life stories out there on the internet. It may lead to interesting discussions or collaborations, and you're always welcome to reach out to initiate that. Now, one really interesting piece of feedback I got after my last video is that someone said that what I'm doing is called navel gazing. And I was like, what does that mean? And so I looked at the definition, and navel gazing, what it means is self-indulgent or excessive contemplation of oneself or a single issue at the expense of a wider view. Right? And that's exactly what this is. And to honor that definition, here is a video of me gazing at my hairy navel. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of extra virgin olive oil and mix it with some pungent mustard oil, and then I'm going to dip my fingertip into that, and while gazing at my navel, as all of you are gazing at it too, I'm going to lubricate the rim of my navel. And then I'm going to take a fine tooth comb and comb the hair on my navel while gazing at my navel. To understand this video, it's going to be useful to review the last one. It just turns out the last video was like 20 minutes long, and to have to consume and digest all of those processed thoughts will inevitably lead to a constipated mind. So what I'm going to do is give a short, sugary summary of, the 6 reasons why I ended up not actively exploring romance for 39 years of my life. And so of those 6 reasons, the first 2 were just inabilities. I had an inability to detect signals and an inability to express myself romantically. And those 2 things actually haven't changed at all. So they are not the reason why I decided to switch and try out romance for the first time. The other 4 reasons were focused around this inner deep desire that I had within me when I was young, which was to create something that I found breathtakingly beautiful. And I kind of wanted to do that before going on the journey of romance. Really, like what I wanted to do was be able to climb up to a mountaintop, to a vantage point, beyond the fog of frustration that was consuming my mind. And from that mountaintop, be able to clearly see the landscape, the rolling hills of my destiny. Okay? And then as I'm looking, be like, oh, there's my dream, and be able to chart a course to my dreams. Now, what's really important to say, and I said this in my last video too, is that you can definitely do this in a romantic relationship. You can have deep thoughts, you can design your destiny. I never dissuade anyone from romantic relationships. It just turns out that my journey from this mountaintop or whatever to my dreams took a meandering path that of detachment that led to romantic inaction. And really for me, the absence of romance created a very unique habitat where I could incubate and hatch my destiny. So for me, it was really great, but we're all different. And that's what I'm sharing here. So what I'm going to do is share 3 different reasons, that are the reasons why I went from this sort of detached mindset to, okay, I'm going to now actively try to pursue romance. The first reason why I decided, my time has come, maybe I should now actively explore romance, is just that I felt like my metamorphosis was complete. And really what that means is, since my last rebirth ceremony on 8/8/2020, for the first time in my life, I felt like I had a clear vision of what my dreams were. Because before then, I didn't even know. There was just this fog of frustration. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had the flexibility to consume my old dreams and create new dreams. So I was adaptable to what the environment had to offer me. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had clear communication between my conscious mind and my subconscious minds. And as a result, for the first time in my life, I felt like I had the ability to rewire my reward system so that through incremental steps I could achieve the dreams that I laid out. Because prior to this, even if I could identify a dream, I didn't exactly know how to reach it, what methods to use. And now for the first time, I felt like I had all of those things. And because of these reasons, I was like, now I can handle the torrent of hormones that come with romance, and it won't totally dislodge me from the journey that I am trying to go on. So how do I get there? How did I get there? And I already talked about this in my last video, but because this is one of my core pieces of content that I'm proud of, I'm going to summarize it again. And I'll go quickly, but I think it's important. So in the beginning, in middle school, in high school, in undergrad, I felt adrift. I felt out of control. I felt like I couldn't create anything of beauty, and all of this created a lot of self-hatred within myself. In addition to just not being able to get good grades, which was the prime definition of my identity at that time. And because of these feelings that I didn't know what my dreams are, I didn't know how to get there, I didn't know how to motivate myself, I felt like I wasn't ready for romance. Then came the early 20s, and I became a high school teacher. And to become an effective high school teacher, my teaching style was basically to open up the chambers of my heart and my soul and let students into my universe of Somdiland. But to be able to do that, I had to make Somdiland, make my soul, I guess, a safe place. I had to change the negative internal monologue of self-hatred and self-disgust into one that was a positive internal monologue that was always there to support me on my journey through my failures and through my successes. And in addition to that, as I became a high school teacher, I gained confidence because I started to become good at something. And that made me feel, like I was on the journey to actually achieving something of beauty. But nevertheless, at that time in my life, when I looked at my internet search history, or as I kayaked through my stream of thoughts, I still felt mired in stagnation, where I could smell the stench and the reek of unidentifiable dreams. Like I didn't know what else I wanted, but there was a frustration in me still. And that's the reason why I went to graduate school, where I was hoping to learn anew within the academic battlefield. And I did dip into depressive states in the first few years of that. But by the end of graduate school, I really started to feel like I could generate new ideas. I could implement, self-motivated and self-driven projects. And one of those projects was Disortium, the Brandeis Multidisciplinary Consortium, where I created it and I brought together people from different disciplines, together to brainstorm interesting, epic new ideas. And I sustained that for a few years, and that was really cool. And around that time, I also created my pride and joy, the Waltham High School Brandeis Summer Research Program, all volunteer-based, all without any support. And it was one of my first successes of life, and it was one of my first dreams that I was able to implement to a certain degree. So by the time I graduated in 2017, I finished my PhD, I still felt like my dreams were undefined. Like I didn't fully know what they were, and there was still this lingering fog of frustration. And so what I did was, in preparation for my rebirth ceremony of 2017, which was also where the coronation of my rat, Her Royal Majesty Queen Herpes I, happened. In preparation for that rebirth ceremony, I created this public document called A Rough Plan for the Rest of My Life. That was where, like, I really, in a focused way across, a month or whatever more, just tried to deposit all of the ideas that I had. And again, the goal wasn't to accomplish all of them or any of them, but it was just to identify the landscape. And so if you look at this document over here, and again, it's open to everyone. I have a table of contents. I have all of these academic interests that I wanted to approach from a research standpoint. This was my academic contribution to the world. I had these desires to do some improvement in the world, and so I had these ideas on educational outreach and environment and the elderly that I've been thinking about. I had artistic contributions to the world that I wanted to do. This was sort of undefined. I didn't realize exactly what to do here as much, and it's been growing since. And then also contributions to myself and a rough timeline. So I did all of that, and then the next stage was that after my rebirth ceremony, after I graduated, the really important part of my life, and I have to thank the Translational Research Institute for Space Health, because they gave me a fellowship for 3 years to become a postdoc. And as a postdoc, I really began practicing how to implement my dreams and reach for my dreams and become an independent person myself. And really the fruition, my dream itself, the actual dream, is my website. That is my living soul. That is where I've been depositing all of the islands of my creativity, and by doing so, I've been able to create this holistic series of storylines that go through many of these islands. And if you're actually interested in that, in the description, I'll put a link to a video called How I Inspire Myself. And at the end of that video, I give an example of a storyline that weaves multiple islands of my creativity. But in any case, here, if you look at this website, I have one for research where I describe all the different types of research that I'm doing and all the research that I want to do in my future. If you look at my portfolio, I have all of the artistic things. And again, if you look at things like my clothing portfolio over here, I talk about, here's a picture I took, I talk about all the different stages of growth that I can go on. So these are the incremental steps to reach, things easy to do all the way to things that are very epic. And I do that for my woodworking and all the different things that I do creativity-wise. But also for my teaching, which is a huge part of who I am, I go through in great detail. And this has taken me basically 3 years to do all of this website. And I talk about all my ideas and all the different stages, and I've got national level ideas over here, which is kind of crazy, but it's kind of cool too if you think about it. And all of these things add clarity and direction to what my dreams are. And so this has been so instrumental in what I'm doing. And I've got an entire section just on my mythological universe. And this has also helped me define what my artistic vision is. And a lot of my science and research actually goes into these pieces of art that I'm designing to explain my subconscious mind. So because of all of this, now I feel like, I'm ready. I mean, if I drown in my hormones due to romance, or if I get hurt because someone breaks my heart and I lose my mind for a year, no big deal. I know how to get back on that path because that path is on my website. Within this this first reason, the first reason of like I felt like I had reached a point of metamorphosis, okay, was oddly enough another set of experiences that I had just 3 years ago at the age of 36. And that was drinking alcohol and then, trying a little bit of marijuana. So unlike romance, which I never renounced romance, unlike that, alcohol and drugs, I did tell myself that I would not do. I had a rule. And the reason why I created this rule within myself was because I wanted to have the power to be able to switch my behavioral state. Like I wanted to be able to unleash myself, lose my inhibitions, be socially fluid just by using my mind. That was something that I inwardly really, really wanted. And honestly, after practicing for many years, I feel like I can do that. And just to sort of illustrate what I mean by this, I'll give you like one quick story because I think it's kind of fun. It's one of my favorite stories. So one year I had these really amazing roommates. We were like good friends, and we hung out and stuff like that. And at that time in my life, I loved dumpster diving. Okay, like at that time, BU was like installing Ethernet. So I was born before internet, and when I was at BU. At that time, for the first time ever, Boston University was installing Ethernet cables to bring internet into the dorms, because prior to that, there was no internet in the dorms. So this was like a huge revolution. And so they were doing a lot of construction, and the science center was undergoing renovation. So the dumpsters were rich with all sorts of little treasures. So I would try to convince my roommates, like, hey guys, let's go and do dumpster diving. You guys will love it. And they'd always be like, no. And so what would happen is like almost every night they would get drunk at night. They were business majors. I was a physics major, so it required maybe a bit more dedication to late night studying. But they would get drunk and watch Cops till like 2 or 3 in the morning, the show. So in any case, one of those nights, as they got like wicked drunk, I was like, all right, let's go dumpster diving. And all of a sudden, once they were drunk, they loved my idea, and usually when they were drunk was a good time for them to do creative or interesting stuff that I liked doing. That alone was kind of interesting, right? That they had to get like super drunk, in their language, get shit-faced before they were open to doing cool things that I liked doing. But once they accepted, we had a lot of fun. Like, we went into the dumpsters, we were jumping around, we were giggling, we were laughing. It was like a lot of fun, joking around, and we were finding all sorts of cool things. We were finding like broken microchips and like metal poles and these metal brackets through which they put the Ethernet cables in. There were a lot of like just amazing treasures. And then all of a sudden the cops came, the actual police. And I was the only one that was sober, so I jumped out and I explained to the police that, look, like all of these things are being thrown away and I'm giving them new destiny, and giving them some purpose in life. And the cops liked that, and they left. And so we gathered all of our treasures together and we went back to our dorm. And the next morning, they didn't remember anything, which was crazy because we had such a good time. I didn't get it. I didn't get, like, why would I, and they would really try to get me to drink, but like I was just like, why? Why relinquish this ability to alcohol, which serves as a license, and then you don't even remember what happened? I took the metal poles that they found because they didn't remember, and I kind of wanted them. So in any case, people keep telling me that what I was doing was fake. Like I could switch my mind and get into sort of like a state, and they told me that the alcohol experience was completely different. So in any case, long story short, then came the rebirth ceremony of 2017. I just finished my PhD. I was 36 years old, and I said, you know what? Maybe I've established this ability of finding my dreams and being able to switch my mind to whatever I wanted to do. So maybe the time has come to drink. And the first time I ever drank was right after my PhD defense, and it was champagne. And I drank with my advisors and my mom, and everyone that was there. And for the first time in 36 years, that was when I drank alcohol. I drank alcohol once before. It was the blood of Christ in church. It was just a little bit of wine, but that was it. In any case, so After that, for the next 3 years, I tried drinking a lot. I tried pushing my limits as much as I possibly could because I wanted to experience this amazing experience that alcohol can provide. And one time I got this drinking shaman, and she's really cool, and she brought me to the next level of drunkenness, if you could call it that. And I got so drunk that I went to the bathroom and pooped quite a bit. I never pooped that much. Or maybe I have, but it was a great release. And then I was so drunk that I vomited, and this was all happening at a networking event, but ultimately the adventure ended on the Brandeis campus, where I vomited all over the campus, just like a proud undergrad would do, a classic experience. But throughout all of it, nothing. All that alcohol brought me was motion sickness and nausea, and that was it. And I was really surprised. And it may just be that I'm a biochemical mutant, or the other idea could just be that as a lot of people explore drinking when they're young, they're also exploring social fluidity and loss of inhibition and partying. And so they make this, neural association between alcohol and these feelings of feeling good. And those two things are not always connected. And for me, since I developed other mechanisms and other ways to achieve those things, for me, nothing happened. I didn't feel socially more fluid. I didn't feel anything. So in any case, all of these experiences convinced me that I had reached my metamorphosis point. I had reached a point where I could self-generate happiness, and I didn't necessarily need these substances. And it built my confidence that I was ready, perhaps, for romance. The second reason why I am deciding to explore romance for the very first time, it's kind of like a different or surprising reason. It's because when my subconscious and conscious minds disconnect, and that doesn't happen usually, it's very rare. I spent a lot of time and effort creating a beautiful bridge of trust and communication between my conscious and subconscious minds. And that bridge is a core component of why I feel happy and content. But in any case, when that bridge collapses, it reveals that my subconscious still has this hidden, latent, and dormant desire for a romantic relationship. And it's pretty crazy. Now, these events are really, really rare, just a handful of times in my life. And when they usually happen is after I have, finished sharing the full expanse of who I am, the full span of my identity. Now, the sharing aspect, there's nothing special in that. I will share almost everything about myself with anyone who wants to talk or discuss. It just happens that coincidental moments where there's enough time and space for me to go through the whole thing. And what I've realized through introspection is that if I do end up sharing all of who I am, it inadvertently and unknowingly to myself rewires my reward system and sense of self-worth into the value system of the person that is listening to me. And if they happen, to reject me or ignore me, then it's sort of like, this is all of who I am and I presented it to you. And if it's that easy to discard me, then what is my worth, And my system crashes and I feel worthless. And I tumble, it's pretty crazy, out of control. And my perception of the world and what I find beautiful drains away. It's kind of crazy. And in the most extreme cases, this can last for several months. And what's even crazier as my mind is looping, and this is kind of embarrassing to admit, okay? But in these situations of rejection, of where my fragile male ego has been rejected and it's bleeding tears, in those cases, my subconscious bewilderingly enough, it's like, oh, I wish I had a romantic partner that would appreciate me for who I am and value me for who I am. This bleeding, fragile male ego needs another person to validate me. And it's so crazy and it's so frightening. First of all, because it happens in completely non-romantic context. And secondly, because it took me an entire lifetime to rewire my reward system so that I would only depend on myself. Like it wouldn't matter to me if people value what I do. And when my conscious and subconscious minds are in harmony, like it is right now, I feel so good. I feel strong. I don't ever feel lonely. I don't need someone else to validate me. And it's such a great place to be. And what's scary is that all it takes to undo that lifetime of hard work is a small hurricane of rejection. And that can uproot my everything that I've worked for and throw my mind into a prison of looping thoughts. Now, it is useful too, because in those situations, what I discover is that there is this inner desire that my subconscious has. And, to be fair, my subconscious has been really nice and has allowed me to reach my point of metamorphosis and has waited for 39 years. So the least I can do is honor his desires. Now I'm going to share a drawing. And this drawing is relevant for what I've been talking about, and it's part of a series that explores my subconscious, a series of drawings. And I'll put a link in the description for that. What you see here in the center is a creature. The creature is called Zimber, and Zimber is the personified representation of my subconscious. And he has fallen into, a fissure, a tractor point, you could say, on the earth of Somdiland. And Somdiland is my mythological universe, which represents my subconscious mind. Now, the fissure depicted in this drawing is nature. And nature has embedded certain expectations of justice, of love, of hate, of sex, of violence, of many things that are inherent in the human. So this fissure represents anything that can cause your mind to loop, such as being in a depressive or angry state, or being consumed by romance, which is the topic of this discussion. Now, usually Somdiland is a beautiful, lush, peaceful, and tranquil place where I don't have any inherent desire to explore these fissures. However, when I'm nearby, what I've understood through introspection is that the gravitational pull of these fissures draw me in with the emotional attachment. And if I fall in, it fundamentally changes and distorts my perspective. You can kind of see these trees and things that are bending underneath the weight of this changing perception as I'm falling into this attractor point or fissure. As I fall in, my perception of reality changes and it perpetuates looping thoughts. So for example, when I feel depressed, which is why this drawing was made, the same world around me feels fundamentally different, and I reinterpret the experiences often so that I further the narrative on my depressive mindset. These fissures are not like inherently evil or even bad. They're just a process of my mind. And so making peace with them is really important. And so my time has now come to spelunk into these fissures and explore them and understand them and grow the muscles needed to be able to emerge from them. Now, if you're interested in exploring this journey for yourself, believe it or not, I've actually created in collaboration with a friend a video game. And this is a video game designed in Unity. And I'll provide a link in the description so you can actually download and play this game for free. And in the final stage, it represents, again, Somdiland, the landscape of my subconscious. And as Zimber, you're walking around and you can fall into a fissure. And as you fall into the fissure, you go through a climb tube and you emerge back into the same exact world, but all of a sudden, everything seems different. The perspective has changed. Same landscape, but things have changed. And now all of a sudden, it's difficult to move. Now I'm crawling. The third reason why I'm thinking of starting to date, and the final reason, and probably the best reason, I probably should have started the video with this, is that I salivate in love collaborations. I mean, that is what sustains me in life. I love forming collaborations. I love exploring new creative spaces. And, you know, to me, dating is just another avenue to meet fascinating people and come up with new ideas. And while I am completely, content and satisfied with my non-romantic collaborations, I feel that like romance is probably going to reveal a new artistic domain that I haven't explored. I mean, there is something primal and ancient about dating and mating and courting and sex, and I'm just interested to explore that and see what sort of rituals and artwork us create together while submerged in those vibes.